The wolf howled before the blade struck. Steel flashed through the darkness. An assassin dropped from the cathedral rafters, his crimson cloak vanishing into the candlelight as poisoned silver raced toward Alpha King Adrian Winterfang's heart. "Your Majesty!" Captain Roland lunged too late. The dagger sliced across Adrian's shoulder instead of his chest, drawing a line of blood before disappearing into the stone floor. The assassin smiled. "You have until tomorrow's moonrise." Then the child dies. He bit into a hidden poison capsule. Within seconds, he collapsed without another word. Silence swallowed the cathedral. No one recognized the warning. No one understood which child. Only the dying assassin's final smile remained. If they failed to uncover the truth before the next moonrise, an innocent life would be erased forever, and with it, any chance of ending a war that had consumed 2 kingdoms for generations. Before this story continues, take a moment to subscribe if you love emotional werewolf romance stories, where compassion proves stronger than hatred. Your support helps bring more unforgettable journeys of Alpha Kings, true Lunas, and impossible choices to life. Adrian pressed one hand against the wound on his shoulder. The poison had not entered his blood. He had been fortunate, or someone had wanted him alive long enough to receive the message. The child dies. Those 3 words echoed through his thoughts as the royal guard searched the cathedral. Captain Roland approached carrying a torn fragment of crimson cloth, recovered from the assassin's sleeve. There is embroidery hidden inside. Adrian examined it beneath the torchlight. A single silver crescent moon, not the emblem of an enemy kingdom, not the mark of an assassin. He recognized it instantly. The same symbol stitched by hand onto blankets, delivered every winter to the orphan sanctuary supported by his own Luna. Isabel. Without waiting for another explanation, Adrian mounted his horse and rode through the night toward the quiet valley where his Luna had spent countless days caring for children left behind by war. When he arrived just before dawn, the orphanage stood peaceful beneath the fading stars. Children laughed as they carried buckets of water across the courtyard. Others prepared bread beside an outdoor oven. Everything appeared ordinary until Adrian noticed one boy standing slightly apart from the others. The child was watching the surrounding forest instead of playing. Calm, alert, though he had been expecting danger all along. And when the boy finally turned toward the Alpha King, there was no fear in his eyes, only quiet recognition. The little boy lowered the bucket of water as though greeting an expected guest instead of the most powerful Alpha King on the continent. Around him, dozens of children hurried through their morning chores. Some were barely old enough to carry firewood. Others carefully folded blankets inside the weathered stone orphanage. None wore royal colors. None carried family crests. War had taken those things from them long ago. Adrian dismounted without speaking. His golden eyes remained fixed on the quiet child standing beneath the ancient oak tree. The boy neither bowed nor retreated. Instead, he smiled politely. "You came earlier than Lady Isabel expected." Captain Roland immediately stepped between them. "How do you know the king?" "I do not," the boy answered honestly. "I only know she said someone important would eventually arrive." Before Adrian could ask another question, the orphanage door opened. Luna Isabel stepped outside carrying a basket of fresh bread. Morning sunlight illuminated her pale golden hair as a gentle breeze stirred the loose strands around her face. She froze, not because Adrian had arrived, because she saw the dried blood still staining his shoulder. Without asking permission, she crossed the courtyard. What happened? An assassin. Her expression changed, not to fear, to sorrow. She carefully removed his damaged cloak. The children silently continued their work. No one stared. No one whispered. They had witnessed wounds before. Too many. Isabel cleaned the injury with warm water infused with moon herbs. Her hands remained calm, steady, compassionate. Adrian watched her quietly. "You already knew someone would come." She hesitated. "I knew danger was getting closer." "You did not answer my question." She looked toward the children. "Because the answer does not belong only to me." The Alpha King followed her gaze. Nearly 40 children lived inside the sanctuary. Some had been rescued from Frostvale villages. Others spoke with unmistakable Shadowmoor accents. Enemy children, living together, sharing bread, sharing chores, sharing laughter. No guards separated them. No one cared which kingdom they had once called home. To Isabel, every child belonged to the same future. Captain Roland frowned. "My Luna, many of these children should legally be returned to their own governments," she answered without looking away. "Their governments buried their parents. I chose to save the children." Silence settled across the courtyard. Even Adrian found no immediate response. Later that afternoon, Isabel invited him inside the orphanage. The building was humble: stone walls, wooden floors, simple beds lined with handmade quilts. Every blanket carried the same small silver crescent stitched into one corner, the symbol from the assassin's torn sleeve. Adrian noticed his curiosity. "You made these," she nodded. "The children sleep better when every blanket reminds them someone cared enough to sew it." He slowly unfolded one blanket. Hidden beneath the stitching was a faded sentence: "No child inherits hatred. Only adults choose to teach it." He read the words twice, then a third time. Outside, laughter drifted through the open windows. The little boy from the courtyard was helping two younger girls repair a broken toy wagon. When one wheel slipped free, he patiently rebuilt it without frustration. Captain Roland quietly observed him. "He behaves like someone much older." "He has always protected the smaller children," Isabel replied. "He believes strength exists to make others feel safe." Adrian glanced toward her. "You taught him that." "I tried." The Luna smiled softly. "I teach all of them the same lesson. Mercy is remembered longer than victory." As evening approached, the children gathered for supper. No one received larger portions. No one sat at a special table. Enemy and ally shared the same bread, the same soup, the same songs. Watching them together felt strangely unfamiliar. Adrian had spent his life negotiating borders, winning battles, protecting territory. Yet inside these walls, the war already seemed finished. After supper, Sister Miriam approached Isabel carrying an old leather-bound book wrapped in blue cloth. "I found it while repairing the western attic." Isabel's expression changed. "You should have left it hidden. I thought perhaps it is time." The Luna carefully accepted the book. Its cover bore no title, only an embossed silver moon surrounded by 12 tiny stars. Adrian noticed the age immediately. "This is older than either kingdom." "It is." She traced the faded leather gently. "It is called the Moonkeeper Chronicle." Captain Roland raised an eyebrow. "I have never heard of it." "Very few people have." Isabel opened the fragile pages. Most had faded beyond recognition, but one passage remained surprisingly clear. She read it quietly. "When the child who is raised without hatred stands between two crowns, the moon shall offer one final chance to those who still remember compassion." No author's name followed, no explanation, only those mysterious words. Adrian stared at the ancient page. A prophecy, perhaps. Or perhaps simply hope written by someone who had seen too much war. She carefully closed the chronicle. It reminds me why this place must exist. Night slowly settled over the valley. One by one, the children climbed into their beds. Before extinguishing the final lantern, Isabel walked softly through every room. She tucked blankets beneath tiny shoulders, brushed hair away from sleepy faces, whispered goodnight to every child by name. She never once asked which kingdom had given them life, only whether they felt safe. Standing quietly in the hallway, Adrian finally understood something that had escaped him for years. His Luna had never refused to choose a side. She had chosen the only side that truly mattered. The children. Outside, hidden beyond the trees, a pair of unseen crimson eyes watched the orphanage in complete silence, then disappeared into the darkness. The forest awakened before sunrise, not with birdsong, with silence. Captain Roland noticed it first. No birds, no wolves, nothing. Adrian stepped onto the orphanage porch, his instincts sharpening. Predators never feared silence. Only survivors did. Somewhere beyond the mist, someone was watching. Inside the orphanage, Isabel was already awake, preparing breakfast with several of the older children. The mysterious boy quietly arranged bowls on the long wooden table, while two younger girls laughed over a loaf of warm bread. He moved with calm confidence, never hurried, never distracted, almost as though protecting everyone around him had become second nature. Adrian watched him for several moments. "How long has he lived here?" Isabel continued, stirring the soup before answering. "Almost 8 years. And no one ever came looking for him?" She paused. "Someone did. They arrived too late." Before Adrian could ask another question, Sister Miriam entered carrying a small cedar chest covered in dust. "I believe it is time." Isabel's expression grew solemn. She nodded slowly. "Bring it." The chest was placed gently upon the table. Its ancient lock had already rusted away. When Isabel lifted the lid, several carefully preserved items rested inside. A faded infant blanket, a silver signet ring engraved with a black wolf surrounded by a crown, a folded letter, and a tiny wooden toy wolf worn smooth by countless little hands. Captain Roland frowned. "These are royal belongings." "They were." Isabel picked up the blanket. "I found them with him." The room fell silent. The boy looked at the objects with quiet curiosity. "I have seen that blanket before." Isabel smiled sadly. "You slept wrapped inside it." He blinked. "I did." "You were only 2 years old." Adrian stepped closer. "The ring." Isabel handed it to him. The moment his fingers touched the silver, a strange warmth spread through his hand. His wolf stirred uneasily, not with aggression, recognition. He looked closely at the crest, a black wolf beneath a shattered moon. His breathing slowed. "Shadowmoor." Captain Roland inhaled sharply. "The royal family." Adrian nodded. "This belonged to King Alaric Ashcroft." The boy looked between them. "I do not understand." "You are speaking about kings. I have never met one." Isabel gently rested a hand upon his shoulder. "No, but one day, the truth would always find you." She unfolded the fragile letter. The ink had faded, but every word remained legible. She handed it to Adrian. He began reading aloud. "If this letter survives, then our kingdom has already fallen. My son must never be raised upon hatred. Teach him kindness before courage. Teach him mercy before power. If he learns revenge first, another generation will perish. If he learns compassion first, perhaps 2 kingdoms may finally live." No signature appeared, only the royal seal of Shadowmoor. Captain Roland whispered. "The Queen." Adrian slowly lowered the letter. The last queen wrote this. His gaze drifted toward the quiet boy. Everything suddenly aligned. The assassin's warning, the crescent moon sewn into every blanket, the years Isabel had protected this orphanage, the child. Adrian looked directly into the boy's eyes. What is your name? Lucien. Lucien? He struggled to continue. Do you know your family name? The boy shook his head. Lady Isabel always told me that names matter less than the kind of person I become. Adrian closed his eyes briefly. Of course she had. That was exactly what she would teach. Outside, dark clouds rolled across the valley. A cold wind swept through the open windows. Then it happened. Lucien accidentally stumbled while reaching for the wooden toy wolf. Instinctively, Adrian caught him before he could fall. The instant their hands touched, everything changed. A surge of ancient energy exploded between them. Invisible silver light rippled through the room. Every lantern flickered. The windows rattled. Captain Roland staggered backward. What was that? Adrian could barely breathe. His wolf had awakened completely. Not in battle, not before an enemy, before a child. An overwhelming scent filled the air. Wild pine, winter snow, moonlight, the unmistakable scent of his own royal bloodline. Impossible. His heart pounded. His wolf released a deep, primal rumble that echoed through every corner of his soul. It was neither anger nor dominance. It was recognition. Family, Lucien looked equally confused. Why does standing near you feel familiar? Adrian stared at him in disbelief. Bloodlines among wolves carried memories deeper than words. Ancient instincts sometimes recognized family long before truth could be proven. Captain Roland spoke carefully. My king, I believe your wolf recognizes him. Adrian answered without looking away. I know. Silence wrapped around the room. Then Isabel finally spoke. There is something else. She walked toward the staircase leading to the attic. Come with me. Moments later, they stood beneath old wooden beams covered with decades of dust. In the far corner rested another ancient chest. Inside lay dozens of scrolls, maps, royal birth records rescued from the burning palace of Shadowmoor. Captain Roland carefully unrolled the largest parchment. His eyes widened. The royal genealogy, one branch had been burned away, another remained. King Alaric Ashcroft, Queen Elena Ashcroft, one son, Prince Lucien, aged 2. Status, missing, not deceased, missing. No one spoke, no one needed to. The truth stood alive beside them. Lucien lowered his eyes. So, I truly had another family? Isabel knelt before him. You still do. She gently held both of his hands. But family is not only the people who give us life. It is also the people who choose to love us every day. Tears gathered in the boy's eyes. You chose me. I always will. At that exact moment, a deafening horn echoed from beyond the valley. Once, twice, 3 times. Captain Roland rushed toward the attic window. Hundreds of armored riders were emerging from the surrounding forest. Black banners, crimson claws, the Brotherhood had found the orphanage, and at the front of the approaching army rode a man wearing obsidian armor beneath a crimson cloak. Regent Victor Blackthorne, his voice thundered across the valley. Return the prince, or every child inside that orphanage dies before sunset. The valley fell silent, not because no one moved, because every heartbeat waited for the first command. Outside the orphanage, hundreds of black-armored riders formed a tightening circle around the sanctuary. Behind them stretched 2 massive armies. The crimson banners of Regent Victor Blackthorne fluttered above the eastern ridge. Across the western hill, Lord Garrick Hollow had arrived with Frostvale nobles who believed no enemy blood should ever inherit another sunrise. For the first time in history, both sides agreed on one thing: the boy had to die. Inside the orphanage, younger children clung to one another. Some cried quietly, others stared at Isabel with frightened eyes. She knelt among them without hesitation. No matter what happens outside, you stay together. A tiny girl tugged gently at her sleeve. Will they hurt Lucien? Isabel smiled with heartbreaking tenderness. They will have to come through me first. Captain Roland stepped forward. And through us. Royal guards quietly formed a protective circle around the children. Every sword remained lowered. No one wished to frighten the little ones further. Outside, Regent Victor urged his horse forward. His cold gray eyes settled upon the orphanage door. "Alpha King Adrian!" His voice echoed across the valley. "You have 1 minute. Surrender the prince. We shall grant the remaining children mercy." A second voice interrupted him. Lord Garrick Hollow rode beside the regent, earning horrified looks from both armies. Former enemies. "Standing together, one enemy child," Garrick declared, "is not worth another generation of bloodshed. Deliver him. The kingdoms demand justice." Adrian stepped through the orphanage doorway. Rain began falling, slowly, quietly. Black royal cloak moved with the wind. Golden alpha eyes swept across the thousands gathered before him. Then he answered. No. Only one word, yet it rolled through the valley like distant thunder. Victor smiled. "I expected that." He raised one hand. Hundreds of archers lifted their bows simultaneously. The sound of bowstrings tightening filled the air. Captain Roland drew his sword. "My king!" Adrian never looked away from Victor. "No one fires," the regent laughed. "You believe they will obey you?" "I believe they still remember they are fathers." Victor's smile faded slightly. Several archers hesitated. Some lowered their eyes. Others glanced towards the frightened children standing inside the orphanage windows. The hesitation lasted only seconds. Victor roared, "Loose!" Arrows darkened the sky. Mime seemed to stop. Adrian moved, not like a man, like the living embodiment of an alpha king. Silver energy erupted beneath his feet. The ground cracked. Wind exploded outward in every direction. Every arrow froze in midair. Hundreds of steel shafts hung motionless above the valley, suspended inside shimmering waves of silver light. Every soldier stared upward in disbelief. No one breathed. With one slow motion of his hand, the arrows turned, not toward soldiers, toward empty ground. They struck harmlessly into the earth with deafening force. No blood was spilled, only silence. Captain Roland whispered, "I have never seen the Alpha Spirit answer so completely." Victor's face twisted with disbelief. "This is impossible." "No," Adrian answered calmly. "It is restraint." He took another step. The air itself seemed heavier. Ancient. Every wolf on the battlefield felt it. The pressure of an alpha whose strength no longer came from conquest, but conviction. Lord Garrick shouted, "Attack!" Hundreds charged. Steel collided. The valley erupted. Captain Roland met the first wave with disciplined precision. His guards fought defensively, shielding the orphanage instead of chasing victory. Inside, Isabel gathered every child into the great hall, except Lucien. "The boy refused to hide. They came because of me." She gently held his shoulders. "They came because adults forgot what children deserve." He looked toward the doorway, where Adrian stood alone against an army. "I cannot let him fight alone." "You are not." She placed her moon-shaped pendant into his hands. "When fear tells you to hate, remember who you are." Lucien nodded. Outside, Victor revealed his true weapon, a black crystal hanging from a silver chain. The moment he raised it, dark crimson light spread across the battlefield. Every wolf cried out. Soldiers collapsed to one knee. Captain Roland struggled to breathe. The blood eclipse relic. It still exists, Victor smiled triumphantly. It bends every wolf beneath its master. Crimson energy surged toward Adrian. The relic demanded submission. For one dangerous moment, even the Alpha King's breathing slowed. The pressure mounted. Mountains trembled. Storm clouds swirled overhead. Victor laughed. Kneel! Adrian did not move. Kneel! The crimson light intensified. Then, a warm voice broke through the storm. Your Majesty! Lucien stepped outside. Isabel reached for him. Lucien! Boy shook his head. No more hiding. He walked slowly across the rain-soaked courtyard. Every soldier watched. No guards blocked his path. No arrows flew. He stopped beside Adrian. Without speaking, he took the Alpha King's hand. The moment their hands met, the Moonkeeper Chronicle resting inside the attic burst open by itself. Ancient pages turned wildly. Silver letters illuminated the final prophecy. A brilliant beam of moonlight pierced the storm clouds despite the daylight. The crimson energy surrounding the relic began to fracture. Hairline cracks spread across its surface. Victor's smile disappeared. What have you done? Lucien answered quietly. Nothing. I simply refused to hate you. The words struck harder than any sword. The children inside the orphanage slowly stepped into the courtyard. One after another. Frostvale children. Shadowmoor children. Each reached for another's hand. No one asked where the other had been born. Together they stood behind Isabel. Together they stood behind Adrian. Together they stood behind Lucien. The sight rippled across the battlefield. Soldiers lowered their weapons. An archer removed his helmet. My son would be his age, another whispered. My daughter died because we chose revenge. Swords began falling into the mud, then shields, then banners. The Brotherhood alone continued advancing. Their commander screamed, "Kill the prince!" 20 assassins rushed forward. Captain Roland intercepted the first. Royal guards met the next wave, but 3 assassins slipped through, straight toward Lucien. Adrian vanished. One heartbeat, he appeared directly between the assassins and the boy. His wolf finally emerged. A colossal spectral silver wolf towered behind him, its glowing eyes illuminating the entire valley. The ground shook beneath a single primal roar. The assassins collapsed instantly, not dead, overwhelmed by the sheer force of Alpha authority. The spectral wolf slowly looked across both armies. No claws struck, no jaws closed. Its gaze alone carried judgment. Victor staggered backward. For the first time, the regent understood he had already lost. Yet instead of surrendering, he smiled. A dangerous, hopeless, terrifying smile. He slowly reached beneath his armor and drew a second relic no one knew existed. The second relic pulsed with a sickly crimson glow. Unlike the Blood Eclipse relic, this one was no larger than a man's palm. Its surface was carved with countless tiny wolf fangs surrounding a single black stone. Captain Roland's face turned pale. The Fang Heart Stone, I thought it had been destroyed. Regent Victor Blackthorne smiled. It should have been. But hatred has a remarkable talent for surviving. He crushed the relic inside his hand. A wave of crimson light exploded across the valley. The remaining assassins of the Brotherhood staggered before rising once more. Their eyes lost all trace of reason. Their movements became unnaturally fast. They no longer fought like soldiers. They fought like men who had surrendered their souls. Protect the children, Captain Roland shouted. Royal guards instantly formed a living wall before the orphanage. Steel clashed against steel. Rain mixed with mud beneath countless boots. Adrian stepped forward alone, no one else. "This ends with me," the transformed assassins rushed him together. One attacked high, another low, a third lunged from behind. Adrian moved with breathtaking precision. He shattered the first sword using only his armored forearm. He twisted aside from the second strike, sending its owner tumbling harmlessly across the soaked earth. The third assassin found his blade stopped inches from Adrian's heart. The Alpha King simply held the weapon in one bare hand. His golden eyes never left Victor. "You taught them hatred. They chose it," Victor replied. "No. They trusted you." Adrian pushed the assassin backward without delivering a fatal blow. The man collapsed, unconscious. Another wave charged. Captain Roland fought beside his king, protecting the opening leading toward the orphanage. "Your Majesty, there are too many." "There always are," Adrian answered calmly. "But hatred has never learned patience." The Alpha King lifted both hands. The colossal silver wolf spirit appeared once again behind him. This time it did not roar. It howled. The sound rolled across mountains and forests like ancient thunder. Every wolf throughout the valley answered. From distant hills, from hidden caves, from forgotten woods, not physical wolves, ancient guardian spirits woven from moonlight itself. They surrounded the battlefield in complete silence. None attacked, none hunted. They simply stood between the assassins and the innocent. The crimson madness began fading. One by one, Brotherhood warriors dropped their weapons. Several fell to their knees, sobbing. Others looked around in confusion, as though awakening from a nightmare. The Fangheart stone cracked. Victor stared in disbelief. "No. It feeds upon hatred." Adrian walked toward him. "And there is not enough left." With one final fracture, the relic shattered into glittering dust. Its curse vanished. The valley became quiet once more. Only Victor remained standing. He slowly drew his sword. "I would rather die than surrender." Adrian looked at him for a long moment. "You still misunderstand. This battle was never about your death. It was about your choice," Victor charged. The duel lasted only seconds. Their swords met once, twice, a third time. Then Adrian turned Victor's blade aside and struck the weapon from his hand. The sword landed several yards away. Victor fell heavily onto one knee. Royal guards immediately surrounded him. The regent closed his eyes. "So, this is defeat. It is the end of fear," Adrian replied. Nearby, Lord Garrick Hollow attempted to flee across the western ridge. Captain Roland intercepted him before he reached his horse. "You called yourself a patriot," Roland removed the noble's ceremonial chain of office. "But you feared one child more than you loved your kingdom." Lord Garrick lowered his head in silence. The battle was over. Only then did Adrian finally sway. A deep cut stretched across his side where one assassin's blade had slipped through his armor during the final exchange. Blood soaked the black steel beneath his cloak. Captain Roland hurried toward him. "My king!" Adrian barely acknowledged the wound. His attention remained fixed upon Isabel. She crossed the battlefield without hesitation. Rain had stopped. Morning sunlight broke through the clouds. She reached him just as his knees weakened. For one heartbeat, he fought to remain standing. Then he did something no ruler present expected. Alpha King Adrian Winterfang dropped to both knees before his Luna. Blood stained the ground beneath him. Every king, every noble, every soldier watched in complete silence. His voice trembled. "I spent years believing I protected this kingdom." He looked into Isabel's tear-filled eyes. but you protected its future. He glanced toward Lucien and the orphaned children standing together. I questioned your compassion. I doubted your judgment. I nearly allowed politics to become stronger than mercy. A tear rolled down his face. I am sorry. I should have trusted the heart that chose love when the rest of us chose fear. Isabel gently cupped his face. You came when it mattered. No, I almost came too late. She shook her head softly. You still came. She embraced him. The Alpha King closed his eyes, allowing years of guilt to dissolve in the quiet strength of the woman who had never stopped believing children deserved a better world. Around them, many soldiers quietly wiped tears from their faces. Lucien stepped closer. He placed one small hand upon Adrian's wounded shoulder. You always tell your guards that courage means protecting others. Adrian smiled faintly. You remembered. I listened. The boy looked toward both defeated leaders. What happens to them now? Adrian slowly stood despite the pain. He faced the assembled kingdoms. Regent Victor Blackthorn. You stole a throne. You raised children to inherit hatred. You betrayed your own people. Victor remained silent. Lord Garrick Hollow. You abandoned justice for fear. You called innocence an enemy. Garrick lowered his head. Adrian raised his voice so every soldier could hear. There will be no executions. A murmur spread across the valley. They will rebuild every village destroyed by this war. They will restore every orphanage abandoned by greed. They will spend the remainder of their lives serving the children they tried to sacrifice. The silence that followed felt heavier than any sentence of death. Justice, without vengeance. Punishment, without cruelty. Even Victor finally lowered his head. For the first time in decades, he understood the difference, and across the valley, beneath a clearing sky, two armies watched the future begin with mercy instead of another grave. 7 days after the battle, the valley no longer echoed with the sounds of war. Children's laughter drifted across fields that had once been stained by generations of hatred. The orphanage stood proudly at the center of the valley, its broken walls restored by the very hands that had once carried weapons against it. Former soldiers worked beside villagers. Former enemies shared the same tables. No banners divided them anymore. Only hope remained. Representatives from both Frostvale and Shadowmoor gathered before the ancient Moonstone Circle, where peace treaties had failed countless times before. Today, no treaty would be signed. Something greater would happen. High Elder Celeste, the oldest guardian of the Moonkeeper Order, stepped forward carrying a silver circlet shaped like two wolves gazing toward the same moon. For centuries, she proclaimed, our ancestors believed peace would come through victory. They were wrong. Peace arrived through a child raised by love. Lucien stood quietly beside Isabel. He wore simple clothes instead of royal robes. The silver moon pendant still rested against his chest. He looked more like an ordinary boy than the heir to an ancient kingdom. That was exactly why the people trusted him. High Elder Celeste placed the silver circlet gently upon his head. Lucien Ashcroft, by the witness of both kingdoms. You are recognized as the rightful prince of Shadowmoor and the beloved son of every heart that chose compassion over revenge. A warm breeze swept across the valley. White wolves appeared along the surrounding hills, not creatures of flesh, ancient spirits of moonlight. They watched in peaceful silence before slowly fading into the morning mist. Many believed it was the moon's blessing. Others believed it was simply the world finally healing. Adrian stepped toward Isabel. Before the gathered kingdoms, he took her hands in his own. You reminded me that a crown protects people. It does not own them, she smiled through quiet tears. And you proved that even the strongest alpha can become stronger by choosing mercy. Lucien embraced them both. For the first time in his life, he no longer wondered where he belonged. He had found his family, not through blood alone, but through love freely given. The orphanage was officially renamed the House of the Silver Moon, a sanctuary where every child, regardless of birth, kingdom, or bloodline, would always find safety before judgment. Its gates would never again ask where a child came from, only whether they needed a home. As this story comes to an end, one question remains. If you had been Alpha King Adrian, would you have spared Regent Victor and Lord Garrick, asking them to spend the rest of their lives rebuilding the future they nearly destroyed? Or would you have chosen a harsher punishment? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more unforgettable werewolf romance adventures where courage, forgiveness, and love reshape the fate of kingdoms. Until our next journey beneath the moon, may kindness always be stronger than fear.